Call your next witness. Please remain standing. Face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Yes.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
My name is Donna Aggers. Donna Aggers.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your current occupation?
Records supervisor at the West Covina Police Department.
How long have you held that position?
Your microphone's not on.
For what period of time have you held that position, record supervisor?
West Covina, since August.
And this is the West Covina Police Department, is that correct?
Yes.
West Covina is located in Los Angeles County?
Yes.
Were you asked to do a records check to determine the time, release time, on a person who had been taken into custody at West Covina City Jail?
Yes.
Was that person David Arvizo?
Yes.
Do you have those records with you?
Yes.
All right. And is this an arrest that occurred on or about the 28th of August of 1998?
Yes.
All right. Can you tell me when that person was booked into the jail and when he was released?
He was arrested at 1,813 hours, booked in the jail at 2,145 hours, and released on that same evening at 3 minutes after midnight.
So 3 minutes after midnight on the 28th?
On the 28th.
So he was brought in on the 27th?
27th, right.
And released 3 minutes after midnight on the 28th?
Right.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Excuse me 1 second. There was a change in the order of witnesses. I apologize. Miss Frey, do you have the West Covina records? They were the ones that Steve Dunkel came over and looked at and got a copy of yesterday. Perhaps we should hand it to the judge first. Your Honor, I was going to ask that. There were records that were subpoenaed from the West Covina Police Department by the defense, and I believe they were
There's a return.
handed to you there by the clerk.
Yes.
And I would like to have those records marked as defense next in order.
Did you want me to open them? I'm not quite sure why you handed me.
Yes, well, in case there was any question. I would like them opened. I believe they were opened previously.
They do not appear to have been previously opened.
Alright, maybe that's a different set. So let's live dangerously and find out what's in the envelope if we may, Your Honor.
All right. They appear to be West Covina City Jail booking records with the appropriate subpoena attached and the declaration of business records.
Alright, may I approach and check that out?
I'll let you decide how you want them marked.
Please. Before they're all stapled together, there might be 2 groups. Let me take a quick look, if I may. Thank you. I think the most appropriate thing to do, Your Honor, now that I look at them, there appears to be, in the materials handed to counsel, the subpoena and then the declaration, and then there appears to be a set of records pertaining to Janet Arvizo and another set pertaining to David. I would be interested in marking as separate exhibits the set pertaining to Janet and the other set pertaining to David, and then it would be up to the court and counsel as to what should be done with the other documents. I don't think they're relevant, except for foundation.
All right. I'll have them marked separately as you've requested.
And then the other documents would be lodged with the envelope and would remain with the court files.
That would be fine.
David's records are 5,109 and Janet's records are 5,110.
Okay, Miss Aggers, sorry to keep you sitting there?
That's okay.
I see you brought some papers with you. Is that a copy of the same thing that was provided directly to the court?
Yes.
Alright, and you have reviewed the records to testify to what you told us just a little while ago, is that correct?
Yes.
In other words, you wouldn't remember off the top of your head everybody's booking information?
No.
Alright, I would like to approach, if I may, Your Honor, with 5,110, and show the witness this packet of information.
You may.
That's the Janet.
Yes, go ahead.
Did you have occasion to review the information pertaining to Janet Arvizo?
Briefly, when I sent this to the court.
Alright, so you were the actual person that sent this in, then?
That's correct.
Okay, and those records are, in fact, true and correct records of the West Covina City Jail?
Yes.
And they're kept in the ordinary course of business as official police records, is that correct?
Yes.
And similarly, the records that you provided with regard to David Arvizo, which I've marked as 5109, would also be true and correct records of the West Covina City Jail, and they are official police records, is that correct?
Yes.
Kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Alright, so let's take a look at 5109. And I'm going to ask if you can tell, by looking at that packet, when Janet Arvizo was booked into the West Covina City Jail.
5110, 5109?
I'm sorry. You're right. 5110, I'm sorry. Let me restate it, just so we're clear. Taking a look at 5110, Exhibit 5110, can you tell from those records when Janet Arvizo was booked into the West Covina City Jail?
Yes.
And when was that?
She was arrested at 1800 hours. And she was booked in the jail at 1948 hours.
Okay, and is there a different place to book in females than males in that jail?
It's the same place.
Same place. So you go into the booking area and people are processed as they go through, is that right?
Right.
So it appears that Janet Arvizo was booked into the jail before David Arvizo, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what time does it show she was released?
At 2115 hours.
So she was released before David Arvizo, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Alright, now, may I approach just to make sure we're literally on the same page, here?
Yes.
They have this in a different order for some reason. Excuse me 1 second, Your Honor. Okay, first of all, Your Honor, I'd like to move into evidence 5109 and 5110 if I can, please.
All right, they're admitted.
And I think the easiest way to do this, because we have different pagination here, would be to put this up on the board, if I may, and so I'd ask to show 5110, if that's all right.
Yes.
First of all, in these records with regard to Janet Arvizo, is there any indication that Janet Arvizo was beaten up?
I didn't see any indication of that.
Okay, and I'm going to turn to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to turn to page 7 and put that up, with the court's permission.
Yes.
And again, this is of 5110. Excuse me, this form, are you familiar with this particular form?
Yes.
How many years have you worked for West Covina?
This is my first year with West Covina.
Have you worked elsewhere?
Yes.
During your year, have you become familiar with these forms at the West Covina Jail?
Yes.
Okay, and is that one of the standard forms?
Yes, it is.
And it says, County of Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Does West Covina have an independent police department, or is it part of the sheriff?
Independent Police Department.
And is the jail facility run by the sheriff or the police?
Police Department.
Okay, so for some reason you're using an LA County Sheriff's Department medical receiving screening form, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's something you use in the ordinary course of business there, right?
Right.
And what is the purpose of this particular form?
Basically to screen the incoming in custodies to make sure there are no medical problems that you need to be aware of.
Can you go a little closer to the right microphone there? Everyone has this problem, especially when we ask you to turn around. Sorry. Alright, so, you want to find out if an inmate comes in and they're suffering from any kind of injury, is that right?
That's correct.
Because you want to make sure that they either have medical attention or something happens so they're not just put in the jail and have a further problem, right?
Right.
If somebody was severely beaten, for instance, you would want to know that when you book them in, correct?
Correct.
The first question on this form is, do you require any medical attention? And in Janet Arvizo's case, it's checked, no, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then at the bottom of this form, there is a place there for inmate signature, is that correct?
Yes.
And I know you're not a handwriting expert, but you would expect that the inmate, in this case Janet Arvizo, is the one that signed there, is that right?
That's correct.
And before somebody's booked into the jail, unless they're unconscious or something else is going on, they're required to sign this form in the presence of an officer. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, if we look at the page preceding that, there's a form here entitled, Officer's Observations. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is this also a form that's used in the ordinary course of business there at the West Covina City Jail?
Yes, it is.
And what is the purpose of this form?
The same as the previous form. It's just more in depth to see if there's any observation that the jailer or officer would have indicating injuries.
And who is the one that actually fills out this form?
The jailer.
Okay. And the jailer is somebody whose job it is to take people in and process them into the jail. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when you say, jailer, you have a booking officer who's assigned to take people in, fill out their paperwork, correct?
Right.
And that person is also supposed to observe the individual to see if they have any visible signs of injury, correct?
That's correct.
And they look not only for actual injury, but they look for symptoms of drug withdrawal, mental illness issues, other issues. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And once again, they are concerned to make sure that they're not checking somebody in who has injuries that may not be readily visible. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. In this particular case, it says, deputy completing the form, and there's a deputy's name there. Is that right?
Yes.
With a badge number or employee number?
Yes.
And that would indicate that that individual, whoever it is, did that screening when Janet Arvizo came into the jail, correct?
That's correct.
And it says the form is approved by, it looks like a doctor down there. Does that mean the doctor actually conducted an examination of the person?
I don't believe so.
All right, so the doctor signs off in general, saying that, he's looked at the form and it looks okay, and this, as he goes through this night's paperwork, it looks okay. Is that right?
Yes.
And in this particular case for Janet Arvizo, there is a no checked in each of the categories on the form. Is that right?
That's correct.
And the way it works there, if you have a no in every category, that means that the person doing the actual booking has not seen any indication that there's anything physically wrong with the person or anything that would require medical or psychiatric attention at that time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
If you could leave it on for just 1 second. All right, and then there are also other questions, and I'm going to turn to another page in just a second. But there are other questions that are asked to evaluate a person's mental level. Let me withdraw that. There are other questions that are asked to determine a person's level of mental functioning. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you want to see if you have someone who's developmentally disabled who may, not really be understanding what's going on. Is that right?
That's correct.
And again, in this case, it appeared that Miss Arvizo was, according to the records, was functioning at an appropriate level. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then there's a property inventory showing what property was on the person of the individual who was being booked into jail. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Now, is there also a process for obtaining a booking photo? And just as the lights go on, that's what I'm going to put up. Anyway, if I may, Your Honor, I'm going to put up the booking photo. Is there a process for obtaining a booking photo?
Do you mean during the booking process?
Yes.
It's just done during the course of the booking.
Yes. Okay. So during the booking, you take a photograph of the individual, correct?
Right.
And in this case there is a photograph as part of the records, here, of the West Covina City Jail, correct?
That's correct.
And if there were particular, let me withdraw that. If you had an individual who had, well, let me withdraw that and just put this up. This is the last page of the exhibit. Is that a true and correct copy of the booking photo that was taken at the time that Miss Arvizo was arrested?
Yes, it is.
And by the way, both Mr. and Mrs. Arvizo, both Janet and David Arvizo, show as their residence address 12,643 Raymer in El Monte. Is that correct?
I don't have her copy in front of me, but his address shows that.
All right, let me show you this. And I'll just put it up on the board, if I may.
Yes, it shows the same address.
Excuse me 1 second. I think somebody was trying to get my attention. Discussion held off the record at council table. Okay, and, Your Honor, I think I offered both and they were received. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Are there social security numbers on that?
We'll take a look at it. If there are, we'll delete it. There are. Halfway down on the left.
Oh, there is. Hard to read. I apologize, I put it up. I don't know if I got that whole thing up there.
Do you know if Miss Arvizo was actually put into a jail cell?
I don't know that.
If somebody is arrested and kept for less than 2 hours on a misdemeanor, where are they processed?
They may be placed in a cell temporarily.
Okay. Is there a reception center that they would be taken to?
There is.
So they wouldn't go through the whole process of actually changing clothes into the jail garb, would they?
Not for a misdemeanor.
Not for a misdemeanor. And do you know if she was released on own recognizance, or she posted bail of any kind?
Objection. Relevance. I'm sorry. Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
This appears to be a fairly prompt processing of an inmate. Would that be your opinion?
It would be.
All right. I have no further questions.
I have just one question, I think, just to clear this up. You said they are booked on misdemeanors, is that right?
Yes.
And a misdemeanor is a crime?
Yes.
It's not like a traffic violation. It's an actual crime in California, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
I'll re-ask the question. Was she released on OR or did she post a bond?
Objection. Relevancy.
It's relevant given the last question.
Sustained.
No further questions.
And obviously no further questions.
You may step down. Call your next witness.
I'll call George Erwin.
Come forward, please. When you get to the witness stand here, remain standing. Face the clerk over here and raise your right hand.
I do.
Please be seated. State and spell your name for the record.
My name is George Erwin. George Erwin.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Erwin.
Good morning.
And the microphone that you want to use is the one over there. Yes, sir. And lean into it, because we'll want everybody to hear what you have to say. You have a business in the Los Angeles area, correct?
That's correct.
And what is the name of that business?
It's Dino's Moving and Storage.
And how long have you been associated with Dino's Moving and Storage?
Oh, 25, 30 years.
It's a family business?
It's a family business.
Passed on to you and your brother?
Correct.
And where is this? Give you a little free advertising. Where is it located?
It's in North Hollywood.
So could you give us a brief description of what the nature of this moving and storage business is that you have?
We are a third-generation family business, referral-based, residentially oriented. We move homes, and store is incidental to moving. We do packing and relocating of homes.
And when you are asked to store items, do you have a storage facility that you use to do that?
Yes, we do.
Is that located at your headquarters?
Yes, it is.
And could you just describe generally to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your storage facilities are?
Our storage facility is a 12,500 square foot concrete tilt-up warehouse. It's a state-of-the-art building. It is high security, motion detectors, wired into the police and the fire department. Inside the warehouse, we have hundreds of vaults. Vaults are large wooden cubes approximately 5 feet by 7 feet by 8 feet tall. They stack 3 high. We have approximately 330 vaults in the warehouse.
Okay. Now, were you asked to come to court here today and to bring some records in connection with the storage of some items under the name of an individual by the name of Bradley Miller?
Yes, I was.
And did you bring your file?
Yes, I did.
And you have the original documents in the file, is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm just going to show them to counsel.
I don't want to interfere with counsel, but would it be appropriate for me to look at them at the same time?
I was going to bring them to you.
Oh, then that's even better. If I could have just a moment, Your Honor. May I just have a second? Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table.
All right. Your Honor, with the permission of counsel, I believe that. Let me ask the witness for foundation, and then we'll just make the offer. Your Honor, I'm going to have a set of documents marked as People's Number 904 for identification purposes. Where shall I put it? Mr. Erwin, you were kind enough to bring your original documents on the Bradley Miller file to the court, correct?
That's correct.
You also made copies of the originals that are in your file, correct?
That's correct.
And have you had a chance to compare the copies that you made with the originals in your file?
Yes, I have.
And they're accurate with regard to the originals. They're duplications of it, correct?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I would move. And these are kept in the normal course of business at your establishment?
Yes.
And they're prepared at or about the time of the transaction?
Correct.
And they're used in the conduction of business for you, is that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I would move that Exhibit 904 be admitted. And we used the copies and we'll allow the witness to take the originals back to his office.
With the exception of the word conduction, I would not have an objection.
They're admitted, and the agreement is you may take the originals back.
I would like the witness to keep the originals there until I finish cross-examination.
Exactly.
I'll try not to use any more bad grammar in my questions to you. Alright, Your Honor, is the Elmo on the right? It should be, I think. Mr. Erwin, I'm going to put these documents up and just ask you a few quick questions about it, alright?
Alright.
And you have the originals in front of you, so if you need to look at them, but I think you should be able to see from the board. The first document I'm going to place up has the actual tag, 904 on it. Now, with regard to this document, does this document have a title?
Yes. This is a bill of lading.
And what purpose does it serve?
It serves as an accounting of of origin and destination, and a time ruler across the top for the time of arrival, time at a location, transportation time to destination or next pickup or delivery. So it's a time accounting in geographical locations.
Alright, if we could just scoot that document down a little farther so we could see the top of it. No, the other way. Alright, it has a number 5020 in the upper right-hand corner. What is that? That's just the receipt number?
That's just random printing. It's a random print number. When these are printed, they routinely do sequential numbers.
Underneath that is a date, or is a series of numbers, the 1st of March 03. What is that?
That would be the date of that this activity took place.
And then on the left-hand side of the exhibit, has the name, Brad Miller. Would that be the person that you were doing business with?
That's correct.
And underneath that is an address that's on Soto Street, and an apartment number. What would that indicate?
That would be the pickup location.
Okay. And then where it says, to, what does that information indicate?
The DMS is our in-house, it stands for Dinos Moving and Storage. The lot number 439, which is a number, it's comparable to an account number that we assign whenever we bring a lot into storage.
Okay. And then there is a part of the form that is not prefabricated or preprinted, with a CK-1477. What does that indicate, if you know?
That means that the charges on the bill of lading were paid with that check number.
Okay. Now, on, where it indicates, from, Brad Miller, there is information there with a name and a phone number. What is the purpose of that information?
That's a contact name, where it says, see us off, I believe.
Okay.
Apparently they're a representative of Brad Miller's or I don't know. That would be the contact person to see there.
Okay. Let's go to the next document. And this one, what is this particular document?
Alright, this is a service agreement. It goes hand in hand with the bill of lading. And it states as a service contract, it states the itinerary for the job, which would be in this case a pickup location, and bringing the shipment to Dino's storage. It's assigned as lot number 439. States the hourly rate at which we'll proceed.
Okay. And this was also filled out on March 1st of 2003, correct?
That is correct.
Alright, let's go to the next document. This document has a 5025 at the upper right-hand corner and a series of numbers, the 5th of March 02, underneath it. What is this document?
This is another bill of lading that was issued for a continuation of the job.
Now, I noticed that the first document had 03 and this one appears to have 02. Is that a 2 or a 3?
Right, we do not use those numbers in our system.
What do you mean by that?
You're referring to the 5025 in the top right-hand corner?
I'm referring to the 3 to 5 and what appears to be 02.
Well, it should be 03. I don't know if it's an error or it's just illegible.
But this transaction, this series of transactions, occurred in 03, correct?
That's correct.
Now, on this particular document is another group of writings that are placed on it, and it looks like a dollar sign. What does that information on the middle right-hand side of the document indicate?
That's payment information again.
For the services you provided?
Correct.
The payment by check?
Correct.
Okay, let's go to the next document. May I approach the witness for a moment, Your Honor? It appears that there's one page missing.
Yes.
Perhaps I could have a moment, too, so I can figure out what's going on.
I'll show counsel what I think is missing from the exhibit. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. Mr. Erwin, in your original documents, well, let me put it this way. Let me just do it so we have it in evidence. That's good. Well, drop it just a little bit. There. This document has a number 439 in the upper right-hand corner, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it has a date of the 1st of March 03 on it, correct?
That's correct.
Could we scoot the exhibit up just a little bit? All the way, okay. Keep going. Alright, that's good. Alright, now, the information that's contained on the bottom portion of this exhibit that is part of 904. What is this information?
That is an inventory of the items that we picked up.
Now, what I want to ask you is, it appears on the right-hand side that it says, pick up, the 4th of March 03. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Was there more than one pickup of goods at this particular location?
There were two pickups.
When was the first one?
The first one was on the 1st of March 03, and the second one was on the 5th of March 03.
Okay, now.
So that should read, the 5th of March 03 for the second pickup there.
Now, is there a document in your original files that reflects just what was picked up the first day, on the 1st of March 03?
Well, that document shows that.
That shows, okay. Let me approach, if I might, Your Honor, just so counsel and I can get this straightened out. Whereupon, an off-the-record discussion was held between Mr. Sneddon and the witness at the witness stand.
I was going to say, could we do it on the record so we all hear it? I guess is what I was going to ask.
I'm going to have a document marked as 905 for identification purposes, Your Honor. I'll show it to counsel. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table. May I approach the witness and ask him some questions about Exhibit 905, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Erwin, do you recognize the exhibit that I've shown you as 905?
Yes, I do.
Do you find the original of that document, 905, in your file currently?
Yes, I have the original document that this was copied from after the first stage in the development of the original.
Okay, would that be the exhibit that's on the board right now?
No, sir, that is. The exhibit on the board now is a complete document. This is a copy after the first pickup. It's a copy of the inventory at the time of the first pickup.
Okay, so that document, go ahead.
And before we were called back for the second pickup.
So that document, and by that, I mean 905 reflects the items that were picked up on the first occasion, on March 1st?
Yes.
Alright.
I probably made a copy. When I knew that this original was going to go back out for a continuation of additional items, as a caution, I made a copy of the original for myself.
Okay.
To keep in the office, which I don't have in my file because you have it.
Thank you for sharing.
The problem is, I don't have it either, so I'm just a little bit lost here. Perhaps I could have just a moment with counsel to ask a question off the record?
All right. Off-the-record discussion held at counsel table.
Okay. Mr. Erwin, the document that you have in your hand is 905, and that reflects the items that were picked up on the first time, on March 1, 2003, correct?
That's correct.
Alright. Now, the item that's on the board that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are now viewing, that is a compilation of what was picked up on both the first time and the second time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's an itemization, correct?
Yes, it is.
And I noticed that in the column to the far left of each of those items, there's a little X. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
What is the purpose of that X on the document?
That X is placed there when the item is checked off at the time that it leaves storage.
Okay, so when you release these items, that's how you determine and document what you gave back.
That's correct. It's checked off as it goes out of storage.
Alright, now, does your file reflect the date in which these items were released?
Yes.
And what was that date?
That would be October 1st, 2003.
And that would be to a Major J. Jackson and a Janet Arvizo, correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, if I haven't, I move that 905 be admitted into evidence.
I have a problem. As far as I can tell, it wasn't provided in discovery, and it's a copy that seems to be a fax Xeroxed copy of something that's not in the witness's file. So I'd like to have an opportunity to get a copy of it. Number 1. And number 2, ask some questions before that's received.
All right, I'll withhold ruling until he's had a chance to ask some questions.
That's fair enough. Judge, has 904 been moved into evidence?
Yes.
It has?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
To expedite, this is yours. This is mine. Okay, excuse me 1 second. This is the entire exhibit here, 904?
As far as I know.
Okay, fine. Your Honor, could I ask to retrieve 905 and see if there's somebody available, with the court's permission, to make a copy for both the parties? It might make it easier.
Okay, thank you.
Could the court staff do it? The DA's offered, but whatever is quickest.
That's what I say. Whatever is quickest.
It's been returned to me to hand to the bailiff, and
Just one of each?
no, 2. 1 for each side, for 2 of us.
It will be on yellow paper.
Yes.
Let me ask you a few questions here while we get that copied, and then we'll go through some of your documents with a couple other questions. First of all, I think you said you're the owner and the proprietor of Dino's Moving and Storage. Is that correct?
That's right.
And you mentioned it's a family business?
Yes.
This is a business that belonged to your parents at one time?
My uncle Dino.
Your Uncle Dino?
Yeah.
Alright, and your brother and you now are the principals in the business?
Yes, we are.
And how long has the place been in existence?
The facility that we're currently at?
The business.
The business? Well, it started with Grandpa in the 50s, and Dino jumped in the late 60s. John and I got involved in early to mid 70s.
Alright, and from what I gathered from the way you started out, you're rather proud of the business.
We are.
Good.
We're very successful. We're referral based only.
I heard that, and I was going to ask about that. You're saying referral based, so you don't really put out a lot of advertisements. You get referrals from satisfied customers and others, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you are bonded and licensed, is that right?
We're licensed by the State of California Public Utilities Commission.
In order to maintain that license, do you have to meet certain standards?
Yeah, definitely. You must comply with the minimum requirements for insurance, property and liability insurance, as well as workers' comp.
And if you maintain a professional operation, you can keep your license, I take it?
Yes.
And you have kept your license with the Public Utilities Commission of the State of California for how long?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this as being immaterial and irrelevant.
Overruled.
Oh, our current license was obtained in 1984, and it's been in place since then.
Alright, and do you have to, when you say, insurance, I asked about bonded. You have to have adequate insurance to cover any liability for any malfeasance on the part of Dinos, if there is any, is that right?
Yes.
Alright, and your job? Well, let me put it this way. The work of Dino's Moving and Storage is to assist people in actually moving from one location to another in some cases, is that right?
Yes.
So you have moving vans, and you have movers who do their thing, is that right?
That's it.
And you also have the storage facility you told us about where you can store people's valuables for them, is that right?
Correct.
Alright, now, in this particular situation, You've looked at your records, which you brought with you, and it appears that there was an initial engagement of your services for the date of March the 1st, 2003, correct?
Yes.
And there were services performed on that date, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us what services were performed?
Items 1 through 20 on the inventory were picked up. They were tagged, inventoried, loaded onto the truck, and stored in the warehouse.
Alright, so if I put up page 4 of the exhibit, which I'll just move to the top there, this is your warehouse receipt, is that right?
That's correct.
And so you said items 1 through 20. Do we have our pointer?
No, it would be 1 through 19. And number 20 would be the starting number on March 5th.
Alright, so what we see here, it is blurry. Either that or my vision is going, here. But right down this line here, it says 1 through, and apparently the first number is cut off, but that would be 19 right there.
Yes.
It says, small box.
Correct.
And then somebody wrote a 2 in next to the 0 on this, is that correct?
Right. That's how we use this form.
Alright, on your original, is it cut off, or is that the way, it just goes 1 through 10 repeatedly? I guess it does, doesn't it?
It goes 1 through, 1 through 10 without the 1.
1 through 0 and then 1 through 0?
Right.
So now that I figured that out, alright. And it isn't cut off. It's just not there. So this one right above the 20 is where it cut off.
That was the last item on the 1st of March 03.
Okay. The people that went to move this out of the location were there for how long? Do you know?
I need to reference the bill of lading and I can tell you.
So would that be, let me guess. Is that this one?
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one. Okay. So the people who came to do this move would have come to the apartment on Soto Street, right?
Correct.
With a truck, and they would have picked up whatever is there, correct?
Yes. They arrived at 8:15. They loaded until 9:30. They drove to the warehouse, stopped for 15 minutes for a break, and unloaded at the warehouse from 10:30 to 11 o'clock.
Alright, I was just pointing up there, so I want to make sure I got this right. This is, do you count portal to portal? In other words, they start the clock running when they drive from the warehouse to the location?
No, generally, well, yes, with storage we do.
Alright, so 8:15 is when they would have left the warehouse, correct?
8:15 is when they arrived at origin.
So you have some other time showing when they.
Right, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
There's an indication at 7 o'clock with a WH above the time ruler. That's the time they left the warehouse.
You're looking at the original, and you can read what I'm showing with the pointer. There is WH, warehouse, 7 o'clock. 8:15 is the time that they arrive at the location?
Correct.
And then they load from 8:15 to 9:30, correct?
Yes.
And then 9:30 to 10:15 is driving back to the warehouse?
Yes.
And they take a break, represented by the X, correct?
Correct.
And then they offload the materials from 10 o'clock, what is it? 10:30 to 11 o'clock, correct?
Yes.
Alright, now, when you look back at this, do you charge for packing if your people have to go pack stuff up?
Yes, we do.
Can you tell whether or not your people had to pack stuff up?
It doesn't look like it, because there's no materials listed on this bill of lading in the section to itemize materials.
Yes. If you look up here on the bill of lading, this area, you would have packing materials and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Alright, and when you look at page 4, which I'm putting up again with the court's permission.
Go ahead.
If I may do it retrospectively, it appears that the first 5 items there, it says, wardrobe, is that correct?
Yes.
So that would represent things that are in a wardrobe kind of a box, is that right?
That's correct.
And then you have 6 through 10, it says, small box. So it indicates things were packed in small boxes, is that right?
Right. And number 11 is a large box.
Okay.
And number 12's a 4-foot 5 cubic foot box. Number 11 and 12 are large boxes. 13, 14 are, 13 is a dining table. 14 and 15 are dining chairs. 16 is a picture. And 17's a picture. 18's a large box. 19's a small box.
Alright, now, As a part of being licensed and taking pride in your business, you would expect your employees to accurately record what they load on and off the truck, correct?
Absolutely.
And you would expect them to deliver to the destination, in this case the warehouse, exactly what it is that they picked up when they got to the place where they're picking the things up, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, I don't mean to insult you, but, I mean, that's an important part of your business, is making sure.
Absolutely.
Alright, now, this other document, which was marked as 905, it hasn't been admitted yet. Do you have any idea where that came from?
It's likely that I made a copy of this inventory when I knew that we were going to have to go back to finish the job. And so subsequent to, well, no, prior to sending this document, this original document inventory, I made a copy of the inventory as it existed on, after 3-1 and prior to 3-5.
So.
Because.
But you didn't keep a copy in your file?
Well, I did, and that's where that came from. But I was visited by a couple of gentlemen from the district attorney's office that asked for copies of my file. And it seems to me that I gave them that copy without noticing that it was not a complete copy.
In any event,
I probably assumed at the time that, well, here's a copy of the inventory in my file. You can have this one, rather than making a copy. It seems to me that I must have overlooked the fact that was a copy of a freeze frame picture in the middle of the job, after stage 1 and before stage 2.
That's okay. That's fair enough. I'm just trying to find out, because it's obviously, we want to make sure it's accurate here. And you're basically saying, now that you compare it, it looks like that was the freeze frame after the first move, right?
Right. And I can also tell there's something on that document that's not on the original, which is, it has a fax stamp across the top, and it has a signature under, where the contract signature belongs in the middle of the page, where it says, per GE.
Yes.
G.E. are my initials. My foreman, who executed stage 1 here, on the March 1st, got a signature in the bottom left-hand corner, but didn't get a signature in the middle of the page where the X is. So I put per GE, acting on behalf of Brad Miller, who hired me to do this job. And subsequently I must have faxed that copy to Brad Miller to have him sign the contract line, because it's signed on that copy.
Okay, is Brad Miller a personal friend of yours, by the way?
No.
Was he just a customer?
I don't know him.
Don't know him at all?
No. I know his assistant was a longtime client of Dino's.
Longtime client of your company?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't hear what you said. Alright, but you didn't know Brad Miller himself. Alright, so the mystery is going to come to a close here somehow or another. This is the page from 904 and it shows, per GE. Your Honor, I'm going to withdraw my objection to the admission of 905.
All right, it's admitted.
And then I'll ask to put it up, if I may.
Well, all right, go ahead.
Is that all right? Okay. What I'm going to try to do is put it up next to this, so we get this over with here, if we can. Is that all right?
The only reason that I hesitated was the district attorney was going to put it up and ask some questions, and you requested to ask him some questions before that, so if he has no objection, then
I'll defer to counsel, Your Honor.
all right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, all right. If we put this up, that's as wide as it gets here, so I'm going to slide it over. But on the right is 905, and on the left is the page from 904, and you can see here what you were talking about when you say this seems to be a freeze frame. It doesn't have the other items listed. It just goes up to 19. But it otherwise appears to be a copy or a faxed copy of the same document pretty much, right?
Right.
Now, when you say, pretty much, it looks like somehow somebody got Brad Miller to sign this one, but he obviously didn't sign the original, because the original that had the new things added on it still doesn't have his signature on it, true?
True.
If we look up here, though, it appears that this is actually a copy of the document in progress, because it has the same notations, the same slant of the writing and all that, right?
It is.
Okay, there we go. Now, the significance of this, I suppose, is that on 3-1, 905 is what happened, and we went over this with the boxes. So pretty much a bunch of boxes were picked up, a table, some chairs and a couple pictures, right?
Correct.
Alright, and it appears from this that somebody had already prepared this house for, or this apartment for a move, and had boxed material up, is that correct?
Object. Calls for a conclusion and speculation.
Sustained.
In any event, it appears that somebody had boxed things, or at least there were things in boxes by the time your people arrived.
I'm going to object to that also. No foundation.
Sustained.
You indicated if your people had boxed things, that you would have had a notation on the.
Only if we used our materials. If there were existing materials there, which oftentimes when people are relocating they have some materials.
Alright, so.
So I wasn't there myself personally. So I don't know, yeah, I don't know.
So you don't know, alright. Whatever it was, the loading. According to 904, the loading and if there was any packing, would have occurred between. Now I can't see anymore. What is that? 8:15 and 9:30, right?
Yes, it would, if there was any packing, it would be incidental to loading.
Okay, now, it appears that on. Let's see, which one is which? Yes, on page 4 of 904, there's a notation there, the 4th of March 03, and there's other documentation in here that indicates that actually the pickup occurred on the 5th of March 03. Is that correct?
Correct.
Alright, so your understanding, looking at all the documents, is there was an initial move of boxed materials and a couple tables, some chairs, a couple pictures on 3-1. And then 3-4, somebody came back. Your people came back and picked up a number of other items. Is that correct?
The actual pickup, the second pickup, was on 3-5.
I'm sorry, on 3-5. It says 3-4, but your other records show it was actually 3-5?
Right.
All of this went to your warehouse, then, on 3-5, right?
The second half went on 3-5.
So all of it was in your warehouse by 3-5?
That's correct.
And it was locked up and secure there?
It was secured in vaults.
Was there any indication that anybody had come to look at it or tamper with it between the time it was placed there in early March and later when it was removed?
No.
And when was it removed?
On October 1, 2003.
And you would not have expected, based on the professional running of your business, that anybody would have tampered with this material in any way from the time it was delivered to you to the time that it was picked up. Is that correct?
It's not possible.
So I said, is that correct? You're agreeing with me, is that?
That's, yes.
You're saying it's not possible that anybody would have tampered with it in between?
Your Honor, vague as to time as to what in between is.
I'm sorry. I'm clarifying the same question, but let me re-ask it so we have a good question. Between the time that the materials were delivered to you and the time when they were picked up by Janet Arvizo, or by Janet, whatever her name was at the time, Janet and J. Jackson, in that time period was the material that was stored tampered with in any way?
No.
Now, when you provide movers for moving purposes, do you ever provide cleaning services?
No.
So.
We pick up our own milk cartons.
So if you have movers come in and they bring their lunch, they'll take their lunch in the bag, or whatever, and throw it away, right?
We hope they will.
Okay, but you don't have somebody come in with a vacuum cleaner and vacuum the apartment?
Generally not.
Is that possible that could happen, or?
It's possible, but I know most of our men would not want to do that.
Alright.
Because they're movers.
Is there anything in your file to indicate that there were cleaning services that were provided?
Nothing to indicate that.
Alright, now, with any luck, did we get the disc? It would have been the CD version of that discussion off the record. I apologize, Your Honor, but we're trying to find the DVD of the moving and we're honing in on it. I would accept any assistance from the prosecution if they know.
If I know what? I know a lot of things, but.
The number of the exhibit on the move.
The surveillance move?
The move of the items are.
I think it's 817 or near 817. It's near 813 to 817. Discussion off the record.
I wonder if we could do this, Your Honor. What I'd like to do, there were 2 copies of this, if I'm not mistaken. One was received and the other wasn't.
They can't hear.
Okay, let's see if we can use our time wisely here. What I'd like to do is play the tape of the move that's already been introduced into evidence. We're just having a little difficulty making sure we have the right tape. Could I defer to Mr. Sneddon to go ahead with his redirect, if any, and then try to do this at the break?
Your Honor, first of all, I object to the showing of this. He's indicated he wasn't there, and he indicated his people don't do any cleanup services. So what's the relevancy of showing this to this witness?
There are 2 employees who appear to be movers. There's a third person who appears to be a cleaner, but I just want to establish these are his people who were doing this move.
You're not going to show the whole video?
No, we don't need to show the whole thing. I just need to show a clip of it so he can look at it and tell us those are his people doing the job.
Do you want to do your other? Do you have any other examination?
Yes, I do.
All right. Would you accommodate him by doing that until the break?
I would, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Erwin, we placed back up on the board. If we could have the lights, Your Honor, please. One of the documents containing your file, and this is the one from the 5th of March 02. But you really say it is 03, with the number 5025 at the top. Does this particular bill indicate that there were in fact boxes purchased, or that you charged people for packing during the course of this particular move?
Yes.
Alright, so it looks like, to me, there was at least 2 and perhaps a 5th one down here?
There's 2 small boxes, 2 medium boxes, and 1 roll of tape.
Okay, so that's tape. When I say it says 1, that word is tape, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so there were 4 boxes that were used?
Yes.
Okay, now, if we could, I want the inventory items, please. Thank you. Alright, now, on the inventory items that show all of the items collected over the 2-day process, do you see, first of all, it looks like there were some chairs taken, correct?
Yes.
And a scooter?
A scooter, yes.
And a refrigerator?
Yes.
Okay.
And a mattress.
And a mattress. Now, with regard to the items that, take a second to review your original there, if you have to, but do you see any plants at all that were taken?
No.
So no plants were taken during the time that you went to your movers were there?
There's none on the inventory here.
Okay.
And they wouldn't live well in the warehouse.
I understand that. Would you have ordinarily taken them, though?
Not to our warehouse.
What would you have done with them?
Sometimes we do transport plants over to another location along the way. Some people will keep their plants at a friend's house while we put their belongings in storage, if there are nice outdoor plants in planters that they want to keep.
So if there were plants, let's say, for instance, at this particular location, would your workers unilaterally either leave those plants there or throw them out? Do you know what your directions and your policy would be on that, if the owner has not made any arrangements with you?
We're working for whatever the client requests. That's what we would do.
So if
they want them left, we leave them. If they want them dropped off somewhere, we would do that. If they want us to carry them to a dumpster, I suppose we would do that for them. If they want us to take them to the warehouse, we would advise them that they're not going to survive.
All right.
In the warehouse.
Fair enough. No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
The problem is, without putting it in the machine and looking at it, I'm not sure which is which. From the notations that we have, it appears to be Exhibit 813, but the DVD in the sleeve of 813 does not appear to be that which was described on the record. So we just need to look at it. I apologize, Your Honor.
All right. Are the jurors going to object if they get an extra 5 minutes? No? All right.